Enter the world, but tread with care. Those roots remember every prayer. Carved from ash, from bone, from flame. The sacred beasts don't play your game. Here change comes, swift on silver wing, with dragonflies that bite and sting. Truth flickers soft and sharp as steel, and every wound must learn to heal. Don't come armed with hollow lore. This world won't let you fake the war. For those who think they understand, you'll bleed the fastest by your hand. So read and ache, be torn apart. These stories rise from broken hearts. With grit and teeth they scream and soar. You've never known a world like this before.
Welcome to Dhampir Sins, Book 1 of the Sacred Beast series by Sarah Yuher. 6. Payment. Kieran. Oren, the client says your job is done and they are happy with what you found. Your pay has already been deposited. Lucifer Abonwings has also requested a meeting with you and Ezekiel. Kieran looked at the text and was reasonably sure he was seeing things due to lack of sleep. That had to be it. He had spent the entire morning bathing Kage and sheared most of his hair when he failed to get the mats out. Let the incubus start over with it and grow it back out if he wanted to. It wasn't salon quality, but Kage seemed pleased with it. Kage began to tremble and shake halfway through his bath, and Kieran offered his wrist to help ease it. He would need to get some spiked blood crystals as soon as possible. Cleaned up with his haircut, Kage looked like a gangly child in one of Kieran's shirts and his drawstring shorts. He was seated on the floor behind the coffee table, watching weekend cartoons Kieran had put on for him. A plate of pizza rolls and carrots was on the table before him. Mrs. Squawkle was also positioned on the table to watch the cartoons. Once Kage had food in his belly, he had stopped trying to munch on Kieran but still would reach out to touch him. Kieran, are you serious? Oren, yes. They paid you double what they initially offered. Kieran frowned and brought up his bank account on his phone. He sat down heavily on one of the dining table chairs. About an hour before dawn, 50,000 mira had been deposited in his bank account. I was in that alley. A knock at the door caught Kieran's attention, and he answered it. Dad said you might need some help. Rand chirped if a were-bear could chirp. He and his younger brother Adam, who had his backpack with him, pushed through into the apartment. They also had Kieran CGH with them. Hello to you too, Kieran said with a yawn as he followed them. Kage watched the two were-bears cautiously, his hand on the dirty stuffed toy, and his body tense to run. Kage, these are my brothers. Rand and Adam, Kieran introduced them. Why are you lying to me? Kage asked as his eyes began to glisten with tears. You look like the ones who hit me. Confused, the three brothers looked at each other before it clicked in all three simultaneously. The Luris Renelkin, Kieran said as Rand smacked his forehead. Adam pulled his laptop out, set it on the coffee table, and opened a file of pictures for Kage to see. We don't smell or look like Kieran, but we are family. The incubus watched the slideshow intently. He watched as Kieran went from being the tallest of the three to the shortest. Kage paused the pictures on one of Kieran with his mother kneeling next to him when he was 7. They held a paper between them and smiled at the camera. Oren was kneeling behind them, and Rand was holding Adam. What's that? Kage asked as he pointed to the paper. The adoption papers that made Kieran legally part of our family, Rand answered. There was a huge party afterward with cake and fireworks. Kieran stole a pizza roll and sat on the couch. Mom still throws a party yearly for my adoption day, he commented. It's coming up on the 25th of Anyagoni's dusk. Yeah, that reminds me, Mom wants to know what kind of cake you want for it this year, Adam said as he sat on the floor. Cake? Kage asked, suddenly lighting up. Adam nodded. Yep, he answered, showing Kage pictures of cakes as Kieran yawned again. Let Kage choose the cake. He'll more than likely still be here then, Kieran said. Go get some sleep, Rand told him softly. We'll keep an eye on Kage. He needs some spiked blood crystals, Kieran said, rubbing his face tiredly. Do you know what they need to be spiked with? Angel dust. Rand sighed. Expensive, but at least they're common enough. You got the money for it. Yeah. Apparently, I did good with the Drake Hardy tale, and I've already been paid 50K to follow him for 4 days, Kieran said softly and stood up, indicating Rand to follow him. It was deposited when I was dealing with the asshole that tried to stiff Kage, he added with a whisper to Rand when they were in Kieran's room. The Werbear frowned as he crossed his arms across his massive chest. Strange. A Furian dropped your CGH off at the Dancing Pig at about dawn. You think Lucifer was involved in that case? Kieran shrugged. Who knows? Dad did mention that Lucifer paid for a meeting between Ezekiel and I. His phone dinged then, and he pulled it out. Ezekiel? Isn't he the alpha of the local Dhampirs? Rand asked. Yeah, Kieran said as he read the text. Lucifer, bring the Luris to the Nephilim Medical Center at 1700 hours for a physical evaluation. Speak of the devil, Kieran said softly and yawned again as he glanced at the time. 13:26, he groaned. He wants us at the medical center in less than 4 hours. Get a nap. I'll get the crystals for Kage and some to give you a bit of pep for the day. I'll also call Dad and see about getting you the night off, Rand said as he shoved Kieran towards his bed and turned to leave the room. Kage seems interested enough in cake that Adam should be fine for an hour on his own. The loud ringing of his alarm pierced through his mind as Kieran curled tighter around the warm body in his arms. The pleasant scent of soap and cotton candy filled his senses, and he snuggled closer, breathing it in deeply. When he opened his eyes, he was met with the sight of Kage, curled into a tight ball against him. Kieran untangled himself from the incubus and got up from the bed as he turned the alarm off. Rand and Adam were both at the table, Adam engrossed in a computer game and Rand with one of Kieran's graphic novels. Why is Kage in my bed? Kieran asked as he quickly made himself some coffee. He said it smelled delicious, Rand answered. We couldn't deter him, and he's so thin we didn't want to break him. Kieran grunted. I forgot to ask this earlier, but why isn't Adam in school? He asked, taking a sip of hot coffee. Adam paused his game and retrieved a specially made energy drink from the fridge. I only had to go in for my high school evaluations. And coming with Rand to study the interactions between a Luris Rin Furian and a Luris Rin Nephilim seemed more interesting than sitting at home trying to convince Dad to let me go to Feliday's Institute for Science Discovery. I thought I was your brother, not a subject of study, Kieran commented dryly, sitting next to them at the table and downing the energy drink. If you choose to become a Luris Allura, I'm sticking myself to your side like glue to study the entire process, Adam said. He pulled a crystal from his computer bag and handed it to Kieran. Could you please download this onto your phone and CGH? It will collect data for me whenever you are near Kage. Kieran shook his head, attaching the crystal to the port on his phone. You're so lucky you're my brother. They woke Kage up shortly after and headed to the medical center. He kept trying to unbuckle the seatbelt and move closer to Kieran on the drive until Kieran bit him and told him to stay seated with the seatbelt on properly. It didn't stop him from fidgeting with the belt or the oversized clothes Kieran had given him, but he at least stayed seated. The reception area looked like any other medical center that Kieran had been to, including the one at the lodge. Uncomfortable chairs, fake plants, shapeless paintings, old magazines, and a TV with the news on. The lady behind the counter smiled pleasantly at the group. Told him to stay seated with the seatbelt on. How may I help you? She asked. Her silver eyes, with their flecks of royal blue, marked her as Jaya Kryn Nephilim of the angelic variety. Lucifer Abonwing set up a physical exam for a Luris Rin Nephilim, Kieran said, watching as the woman typed on her keyboard. Yes. I'm guessing the young man behind you is the incubus, she asked and eyed Kage, huddled behind Kieran. One hand holding Kieran's shirt hem and the other clutching Mrs. Squawkle. Yes. All right, she said and handed Kieran a clipboard. Have him fill this out. The doctor will call you back shortly. The group sat in the uncomfortable chairs, barely big enough to accommodate Rand. Adam was slightly smaller than his older brother, but still had time to grow at 16. Kage only knew his name and sex, and the paper was painfully empty when a nurse came to take him to a back room. The incubus didn't want to leave Kieran's side, so they left the two Werbears in the waiting room as they were led to an exam room.
13 souls stolen, one rescued from the refuse. A man barely past a boy, raised by bears of blood-soaked oaks. As love grows distant, cotton candy tastes so sweet. Lust and love, what's the difference? The badger jokes and steals, the world sneers and scorns. Blamed for their father's sins, innocent hearts drown in Dhampir sins.